Hello guys, it is Gate of Zeros here, and last week the brand new Toy Story 4 hit cinemas, and just before we get any further into this video, I am putting out a huge spoiler warning on this video. This video is full of so many spoilers from Toy Story 4, so if you haven't seen Toy Story 4, then you need to make sure that you go and check it out, and then come back to this video and watch it, because it's going to be a really cool video. And Toy Story 4 is amazing, so you have been warned, okay? So you better go and leave this video right now if you haven't seen Toy Story 4, otherwise it's going to be spoiled for you in like, I don't know, the next 10 seconds maybe. So, Toy Story 4. Now, I absolutely love Toy Story 4. Personally, I didn't think it came as good as Toy Story 1, 2, or 3. I just thought it was, like, below all of them, pretty far below all of them, but it was still a really, really good Pixar movie, and I loved loads of it. I loved the animation, I loved the transitions. It was really emotional all the way through. Like, you were crying at the end, weren't you, when Woody left, and I absolutely loved it. But the one thing that really annoyed me throughout all of that film is Buzz. Now, usually Buzz is like one of my favourite characters from Toy Story. I mean, he's a space ranger. I mean, the amount of times that Woody explains in all of the movies about how he shouldn't be popular as all he can do is pull a string. I mean, Buzz is so cool. Like, at the end of Toy Story 3, when Andy is passing Buzz over to Bonnie, like, he explains how cool he is, and, like, he can shoot lasers and, like, fly and, like, is sworn to protect the galaxy from the evil Emperor Zurg. Like, he's such a cool toy, as Woody calls him in Toy Story 1. And yet, in Toy Story 4, he was sort of just, like, wasted, I guess. And for some reason, throughout the entire movie, he decided to, like, go to his inner self by pressing one of his buttons and then hearing what it says and then would do what it says. Like, at first, it was really funny. Like, I thought it was hilarious at first. Like, Buzz struggling to understand what Woody is saying and then starts pressing the buttons, and then his inner voice tells him what to do, and then he goes and does it, and it's always right. And then it worked for the first few times, and it was really, really funny, and, you know, you heard the whole cinema laughing. Except from then it just kept on going and going and going. And even when it was the point where, like, everyone left Woody and Woody returned to Gabby Gabby, Buzz was going to go with him, and then he asked his inner voice, and then he kept on pressing his inner voice. And, like, after that moment, he still kept using it throughout this entire movie. And I'm like, Pixar, have you forgotten what Buzz was doing in the previous Toy Story movies? Like, this Buzz in Toy Story 4 seems useless. And, like, he's forgotten all of the heroic things that he did in the previous films. And now he's going to ask his inner self. Like, sure, it's funny for the first few times, but when it keeps on going and going, it just makes Buzz look like a stupid character, basically. So, today we're going to be discussing why on earth Buzz has become so stupid. Let's get on with it. But before we go any further, just make sure you've clicked that red subscribe button down below and have your notifications on. Now, one of the things that really annoyed me the most was that in all of the Toy Story 4 trailers, they built Buzz up to be like some sort of like huge superhero like he was in the previous movies, and they'd even edited out some of the dialogue between the Ducky Bernie and Buzz scene where Buzz traps Ducky's foot with his helmet, because of course in the trailers it's just Buzz getting annoyed and then he traps it with the helmet, but in the actual movie he asks his inner voice for help and then he traps Ducky's foot. Now, this of course was driving me totally insane while I was watching this film, because I just kept remembering all of those fantastic scenes from the previous 3 Toy Story movies where we see Buzz being awesome. So let's list down some of those key moments where we see Buzz being really heroic, and it honestly makes a Buzz in Toy Story 4 look like so stupid. So of course in the first movie we get first introduced to Buzz, and already he's off and acting like a space ranger. He instantly lasers at Woody as soon as an intruder comes in, because of course he still thinks he's a space ranger. He goes for the risk of saying, oh, I'm going to fly, and he literally jumps off the edge of the bed. And if there wasn't the Luxo ball for him to land his head on, he probably would have smashed the helmet or something like that, because he is crazy. He literally goes and flies around the room. Like, that's a risk taker. He is being heroic, and he's only been on screen for about 5 minutes. And throughout all of Toy Story 1, he goes through many, many challenges and just overcomes them without his inner voice. He gets thrown out of a window, and then he has to make it all the way to Pete's planet with Woody, who he classes as his enemy. And of course, he gets captured by Sid, and at Sid's room, he has to face all of these really freaky creatures, and we see as soon as they first meet these really freaky creatures, Woody is absolutely terrified, but Buzz, no, he doesn't need to go to his inner voice. He literally gets out his laser and starts shooting it at them. Like, he's not scared one bit of them. He knows what he's going to do, and he knows what he's talking about. And then, of course, later on in the movie, he realizes that he is a toy, and he takes the ultimate risk of trying to fly, and he ends up breaking his arm. Like, if that's not a hero to you, and a guy who's not really brave, then I don't know who it is. Like, he doesn't need his inner voice to go and tell him to jump off the edge of the banister so that he can see if he can fly. No, he just does it by himself. And then, to top it all off, once his arm gets fixed back on, he gets attached to a rocket. And, like, he's all down and depressed a bit, and then Woody brings him back up. Woody's mainly his main encourager, not his inner voice in the first movie. And, of course, we see him attached to this rocket, and Sid is literally about to send him flying up into the air and going to explode. And then, of course, he's saved, and we see Woody and Buzz riding on R4 all the way at high speed with a dog chasing them. And then, of course, we see them actually flying, or as Buzz calls it, falling with style. And throughout the entire first Toy Story, he is hit loads and loads with loads of challenges, and he has to take loads of risks, and he does it without his inner voice, and he seems really, really heroic by the end. And then we get to Toy Story 2, and literally the first scene of this movie is all about how heroic and awesome and cool Buzz Lightyear is. Because the first scene is Rex playing the Buzz Lightyear game, and we literally get to see all of the amazing and crazy and brilliant, awesome things that Buzz Lightyear can do, and he does it without his inner voice. Of course, he asks Star Command for help at times, but he doesn't go for his inner voice. Like, what is the point of that? We see him flying, we see him shoot lasers, we see him fight Zurg, we see him hide from cameras, and we see him break into Zurg's place, and it is just awesome to watch. And then throughout all of the Toy Story 2 movie, we get to see Buzz take the lead for the first time, because we saw throughout all of Toy Story 1, Woody was taking the lead, and now it's Buzz's turn to go and rescue Woody from Al, because Woody has been taken away, and he takes a whole team with him. He takes Ham, Slinky, Rex, and Mr. Potato Head, and they face loads and loads of challenges. For one, they have to cross the entire city. Of course, Buzz had to go to Pizza Planet in the first film, except from it wasn't as far as crossing the whole city. And then they have to cross that road, and I have to say, that is one of the best scenes in animated history, them crossing the road in the cones, because it is just so inventive and so cool. And did Buzz have to ask his inner voice? No, because it's brilliant seeing them cross the road. And of course, they go to Al's Toy Barn, and Buzz is faced with another version of himself who thinks he's a Star Command, and he has to fight him, and it's really, really cool. And then, of course, we see that Buzz actually has to fight Zurg in real life, and you can just see, even if it's not the actual Buzz that it's Andy's toy and it's the other Buzz, you can just see it's a really cool scene, and that Buzz doesn't need to have his inner voice to tell him what to do, because he can do it automatically, because he is the coolest toy ever. He's Buzz Lightyear. We then even get to see Buzz and the others drive a car. And then we see him fight Stinky Pete with the help of Woody, Bullseye, and Jessie, and we see them save Woody and Jessie from the plane. And throughout all of that, Buzz is so heroic, and does he need his inner voice? No, he doesn't. And finally, we come to Toy Story 3, where we see the whole transformation of Buzz, and we really get to see what he's like at his full potential, because the toys have just been sent to Sunnyside, and they've just lost their owner, Andy, and all of the toys seem to be a bit freaking out, and Woody, of course, leaves them all, and leaves Buzz in charge to look after the toys, make sure they are okay. And of course, Buzz does exactly that. He sees in the butterfly room that the kids are being nice to the toys, and realizes he needs to make a stand, because he is now the leader of this group and not Woody. And he doesn't go to his inner voice to ask for this help. Instead, he just says, I'm going to go and find Lotso to see if we can move to the other room. And his escape from the caterpillar room with the help of the rest of the toys is really cool. We get to see him use his wings, we get to see him fly up there. And then finally, once he's out of the caterpillar room, we see him go up to a vending machine, and he uses his really cool intelligence to actually climb up the vending machine and find out what on earth is going on in the Sunnyside daycare. And of course, he doesn't use his inner voice to help him work out where to go. He just uses his initiative to just go up into the vending machine and find out what on earth is going on. And then, of course, we get the whole transformation of Lotso's guards completely tackling down Buzz onto the ground, taking off his back and changing his mode from play to demo. And then we get a whole transformation and we get to see a completely different version of Buzz that we've never seen before, but a one that makes you see how serious and how intelligent he can be. We get the army Buzz. We get back to being the Space Ranger Buzz, but this time Star Command is literally Lotso. He always does anything that Lotso does. He locks up all of his friends, and we see how much power Buzz can actually have. And then, of course, he changes into his Spanish mode, and we see a whole other version of him. He is so heroic. The amount of times he saves Jessie, like when Jessie is about to be hit in the garbage truck area, and then Spanish Buzz picks her up and goes to the other toys, and then ends up sacrificing himself so that he could save Jessie. And that is just so heroic. He didn't even have to ask his inner voice. And one of the funny things that happens in Toy Story 3 is that when Woody needs help from Buzz, do you know what Buzz does? He literally presses one of his buttons to be sarcastic and say Buzz Lightyear to the rescue in Spanish, just so that he can show how awesome he is. In that case, he uses his inner voice not to help anyone else, but to show how awesome he really is. And I just find that really funny. And then in the final scene, we get to see Buzz's full transformation. We get to see the full character development from him from Toy Story 1, where he still thinks he's a Star Command, to Toy Story 3, where he has become this huge hero. And every toy is really worried about this whole incinerator. They think they're gonna die. Jessie asks Buzz, what do we do? And Buzz just holds her hand, and then he reaches out for Sheriff Woody's hand. And it is just such an incredible moment. And if he had gone and asked his inner voice what to do in that moment, it would have completely ruined it, because Buzz is the only one who's not scared in this moment. Buzz is the only one who is going to keep the toys all together in this moment. Buzz is the most courageous moment. He is the Space Ranger in this moment. He is the hero in this moment. And if he'd gone to his inner voice, would have completely ruined it. So that is how heroic Buzz is. So why on earth is he so stupid in Toy Story 4? And to work out this, we have to look at the timings of Toy Story 4. Now, when I say the timings, I'm not meaning what year Toy Story 4 takes place. Instead, I'm meaning how long has it been since the toys were played with Andy, and how long have the toys been played with Bonnie. And we can really easily work this out just from the first scene we see in Toy Story 4. And this is the scene where we get to see, and at the very beginning of the scene and at the very beginning of this movie, it says that this scene is taking place 9 years ago from the present day. And we know that Bo Peep left sometime around after Toy Story 2 has taken place. And I'd say in Toy Story 2, Andy's still really well playing with his toys. So I'd say he's around 10 or 11, I'm just assuming. So let's just say he's around 11 years old in Toy Story 2. And Bo Peep leaves in a couple of months afterwards. So he's around 11, and we have a 9-year lifespan. And of course, in Toy Story 3, we see him go to college. So if he's 11 in Toy Story 2, and he's 18 in Toy Story 3 because he's going to college, then it means that it has been 7 years already. And of course, in Toy Story 4, it says that Bonnie is starting kindergarten, and she was in the butterfly room in Toy Story 3, which means she was in her last year in Sunnyside Daycare, so that would have been year 8 for her last year. And then the 9th year, which is the present day, is of course when Bonnie is starting kindergarten, which means that it's been 9 years since the toys were played with Andy. They had a 7-year gap where they were just left in a box and weren't played with at all, and then they have been played for 2 years with Bonnie. Now that can tell us a lot about Buzz's character. Now, of course, Buzz wasn't there for all of those 11 years with Andy. He was probably around with Andy for about 3 or 4 years while Andy still played with him. And of course, we see how Andy plays with his toys and his whole imagination and what he's actually visualizing at the beginning of Toy Story 3, where we get the epic adventure that is basically Andy's imagination of what is happening with the toys. We get to see Woody, Jessie, and Bullseye riding along trying to catch a train with One-Eyed Bird and One-Eyed Betty all attacking them with the aliens. And then, of course, the train ends up falling off the bridge and Buzz Lightyear comes up flying from the ground and lifting up this train because he has so much power. And then, of course, they get attacked by evil Dr. Porkchop and they get attacked by monkeys. And it is a really cool scene because we get to see what on earth Andy is imagining. And then in Toy Story 3, we get to see how on earth Bonnie plays with her toys. And it is very different. Now, it's probably because of the age gap. Bonnie in Toy Story 3 is in nursery, whereas Andy in Toy Story 2 and 1 is around maybe middle school age, like we said before, maybe around 11. So he probably has more exciting adventures, whereas Bonnie in Toy Story 4 literally has an adventure about hats. And we can see the really huge differences between how the toys are played. With Andy, it's all about rescuing Bo Peep, and Sheriff Woody and Buzz Lightyear are all the heroes and all that sort of stuff. Whereas with Bonnie, it's more like chilled out, not really any rescuing going on. And in Toy Story 4, we see, like I said before, they literally are about to play a game about hats. And we also see how excited they are when they're played with Andy and they're doing all of these adventures. And then also, by the time we get to Toy Story 4, they're really excited to be playing a game about hats. Now, you could just say this is because they are toys and they're really excited whenever their owner plays with them. But I don't really think so. And that's because I reckon the personalities of the toys have changed. Now, you notice throughout all of Toy Story 4, all of the characters have sort of accepted that Bonnie is their owner, whereas Woody is still all about Andy. And like I said before, it's been 9 years since the toys have been played with Andy. They were left for 7 years without being played at all, so Buzz's personality stayed the same as in Toy Story 1 and 2, because they weren't given any new ideas when they were playing, except from in the course of 2 years, he has had 2 years of Bonnie playing with him, and of course he had 7 years without anyone playing with him, and then finally he has these 2 years of him being played, and literally it's nothing like what Andy was doing. It's not a story where Buzz is the hero with Sheriff Woody and they're going up and saving trains. Instead, it's a story about, I don't know, cooking or wearing different hats and helmets and stuff like that. It's nothing to do with Buzz being like a hero. Instead, it's him being like a really innocent person. And because he's being played with this, I reckon it has been reflected onto his personality as well. So instead of being really heroic like in the first 3 movies, he's a bit, I wouldn't say less confident, but just less heroic, definitely, and definitely isn't as courageous as he used to be, and is basically just a bit stupid now, because instead of being played like Andy played with him, where he's all heroic, he's being played like Bonnie played him, where he literally is like the most innocent person ever, and this has sort of changed his personality just over the course of 2 years. And if you look very carefully, this hasn't just happened to Buzz, but it's happened to like every single other main character toy that we've seen really heroic in the previous movies. Take Jessie, for example. In Toy Story 4, she stayed in the rental car for the entire movie. She literally never went on any of the adventure with Woody, Bo Peep, and Buzz. And all of the other characters stayed in the rental car as well. Like, we've seen how courageous and heroic Jessie can be in the other 2 movies. Like, why isn't she doing this? Because her personality has been changed as well from the way she's being played. And the only person whose personality hasn't changed and is still the same is Woody. And there's one simple reason for that. At the beginning of Toy Story 4, we see Woody get put in the cupboard because he isn't played as much by Bonnie and he is still really loyal to Andy. So his personality hasn't changed, but every single other toys has. So they're now just so innocent and not heroic, and it triggers me. So guys, that's the end of today's video. I hope you have enjoyed it. I'm really sorry if it was a really long video, but it's our first ever theory on Toy Story 4 since it came out. So it's gotta be a big video, hasn't it? If you did enjoy it, then please smash that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tell us in the field section down below what you thought of this theory. If you think the reason why Buzz needs to use his inner voice is because of the way he's being played with, his personality has now been changed, and do you think it's happened to any of the other characters? Do you think Woody's the only one who hasn't changed since he's been with Andy. And also, while you're down there, why don't you tell us whether you love Toy Story 4 or whether you absolutely hated it, or if you just think, yeah, it was okay. Make sure you leave all your thoughts down below in the field section as well. And if you want to know what we fully think about Toy Story 4, then you can go and check out our review. There'll be a link to it down below in the description, or you can check it out by clicking the card up there. But as always, we've been here on Creative Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.